Welcome. I'm Kevin Miller. In this episode, we're going to consider confidence versus vulnerability with Nick Vujicic, who has no arms and no legs. You may well know of Nick Vujicic. He's a famous personality with no arms. He's got no legs, and an incredible message, which you're about to hear. I'm bringing this episode back because of something that Tom Ziegler, who was with me when we both talked with Nick, it's something he said at a later date as we were discussing confidence. And he referenced Nick and he said, here's a guy with no arms and no legs. He is most physically, at least, vulnerable of just about anyone. And yet he seems to be more confident than just about everyone. I never forgot the sentiment, and I found myself pondering it again lately after I suffered a loss and was considering my own confidence. So I'll let you think on that concept, that preface there, while I bring you Nick talking about just overcoming challenges. I mean, he shares that just because someone else's challenges might seem bigger, it doesn't negate our own. It means a lot coming from him. I mean, we all want to know how to deal with whatever challenges we got better, with more joy, peace, and of course, success. Nick is one of the most sought after speakers on the planet, often getting 100 speaking requests per week, because he is just one of the most overcoming inspirational people that you'll ever hear. And it's so powerful to see him up on stage in his physical state, giving this message, which you're about to hear. I mean, tens of millions of people follow him on social media. He's got YouTube videos with hundreds of millions of views. But it's just real world stuff. I mean, you're going to hear him. I mean, the guy almost committed suicide. That you would understand. This isn't some Pollyanna face on hardship. So here, the conversation with myself, Tom Ziegler, and Nick Vujicic. And when I'm not having these conversations about human potential, I'm working directly with people on theirs, looking at next steps, ideas, and how to bring those to life, often in a business plan. You can connect with me at kevinmiller.co or email me, kmiller@kevinmiller.co. Here are a few sponsors. They help make the show possible. Then drive with me as we consider this confidence versus vulnerability with, again, Nick Vujicic and Tom Ziegler. Let's see what we can learn for ourselves today. Well, Nick, to begin with, I am told that you get nearly 100 speaking and interview invitations per week. So we are incredibly honored that we made the cut. Thanks so much for giving us your time today.
Hey, any association with the Ziegler family, big fan, amazing legacy. God bless you all. And thanks, Kevin, for having me.
Well, we do a lot of interviews here, and I don't know that I've ever had anyone testify to the extent that Tom Ziegler has of the impact that you've had on his life and that he has seen you have on others. And I know you guys have spent some time together, and that's been precious.
It has been. Hey, Tom.
Well, Nick, let me just say this. Everybody, he's come to our office, I think, a couple of times now. And we've had, I could just give a who's who has been to our office. When Nick rolls in, it's like the building fills up with love. I can't explain it. And it's overwhelming in every way that's good. And so I follow you, and I pray for you. But I just have to say that the Spirit is there when you're there. God's presence is there. And I think it's because you share one of the most outstanding qualities that my dad had, which is that brokenness and that humility that keeps the barriers away. And so just love and appreciate you. And I'm so glad you're on.
Tom, so kind of you. Thank you for the encouragement. Praise God for that. We'll never forget the meetings that we had with your dad and hugs with your mum there too, and just love you and your whole family. And it's a pleasure and privilege to try to bring value to what you're doing here to these listeners.
Well, I want to start off. There's a couple of recent events that are highly relevant right now. And when we talk about influence and we talk about love, I know, Nick, that a role model and mentor to you was the Reverend Billy Graham, who had just passed away 2 days ago. I'm sure that when that news came to you, there were some feelings that arose. I wanted to ask about that.
In 2011, we had the privilege and honor of being with Reverend Billy Graham face to face in his home. He wasn't taking any visitors, but Anne Graham Lotz saw me speak as a spiritual leader at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland, Davos. And she said, would you come and maybe, encourage my daddy? And I'm like, what? Like, are you serious? I'm not going to encourage him. I was like, how? I was like, that's the man. There's no one like him. And so I said, if that door of opportunity was there just to fellowship in that time, if that's something that you think would be great, then we would be most honored. And so me and my wife, we were engaged at the time, so we were both there. And I love how he finished strong. I love how he kept integrity. I love that he focused not on the bright lights, but the light. And he kept the gospel. He didn't add to it. He never subtracted from it. And I'll never forget the fact that, me as an evangelist also traveling the world, and sometimes going into countries where there are no Christians, or Christians are the minority of other religions. He said, Nick, don't ever preach against other religions, just preach the gospel. The gospel is powerful enough. And so how he lived his life, how God used him, he is the number one and always will be the number one role model of a ministry that was an amazing steward of what God called them to do by his grace.
Yeah, thank you. Well, no matter what you are dealing with, arms or no arms, you have had 2 kids, and you just had 2 more, same time. For anybody, that is dramatic. I have had 2 at a time in diapers, but not twins. And so I'm imagining that even with the strength that you have, you've been stretched a little bit in the last couple months. Tell us about that.
You know what? We've only been married 6 years, and in 6 years, if you go back even 7.5 years to find the confirmation that you found your soulmate, get engaged, get married, buy a house, have 4 children, all in 7.5 years, plus a ministry that takes you to 18 presidents. I was just with Mr. Trump on the weekend, President Trump. And so when you are on the front line of God's army, taking over territory for his kingdom and trying to plant seeds of love, hope, and faith in the influences around you, you can't imagine how stretched we are. But I'm going to tell you, on the context of what you were saying, nah, mate, I got the easy end of the deal. We got Kanye all the help that she needs, but she's the one rocking the babies and taking care of all that. But I am enjoying mostly my oldest son right now, where we can have conversations, we can go on field trips, he can come with me on trips, and just go see the world a little bit. And so we are blessed. It's always been stretched, but blessed, and there are different seasons ahead. And one of the things, though, that I know Tom was really concerned about when he saw me and his family was, Nick, you're running fast and you got to find your pace of being healthy and putting family in priority. And so that was a big effort, Kevin, as you can imagine, to try and find that balance of doing everything you feel like you need to do, yet making sure that the good and excellent things of this world and even the ministry won't ever distract you from the most important things. And so we got me down from, I used to be a bachelor, 320 days on the road, no joke. And now we got it down to 105 days last year, and this year's 84, and next year will be 70. Yet it's amazing that even though we're slowing down, we're doing things differently, innovatively, reaching more people. So we're excited about that. But yes, my girls, Olivia and Allie, they're gorgeous, they're beautiful, they're 8 weeks old, and we got Kyoshi and Dayan 5 and 2.5.
Beautiful.
Oh, man, Nick, we've had conversations through the years, and I've heard you speak, and of course, I search YouTube for you on a regular basis. Just like Dad says, even a Ziegler needs a checkup from the neck up, and you just have a way of inspiring. But I know, and we've had, you've shared with me and others that, and in your books, that when you were 10, you had a crisis. You tried to commit suicide, and you've struggled on with those things. And then at 15, and my niece was this way. She didn't have the situation that you did, but she's like, God, where are you? You know, what's the deal here? But at 15, you had a revelation. You read in John, and you realized God had a plan for you. He has a plan for a blind man. He has a plan for you. All of these low points, and what was it? I mean, what was it in your early life, do you think, allowed you at 15 to have that revelation? I mean, can you look back at anything and go, yeah, now I see it. I didn't see it when I was in it, but now when I look back, this is what allowed me to have that.
Look, it's the journey. It's the journey of being brought up in a home of faith. I definitely didn't like God and the idea of God for several years because his love didn't make sense to me, and I would actually hate hearing my dad preach from the pulpit about the love of God when his own son was born this way, and who cried out to God for a miracle, who's the God of miracles and unconditional love. Where is the miracle? But affirmation, persistent, resilient love in action from my parents helped me to be sustained in many, many ways. In fact, that was the only reason why I did not go through with the attempted suicide at age 10. I attempted, but I didn't go all the way, not because I couldn't do it, but because I did not want to do it, as I, in my mind, saw a visual of my parents crying at my grave, wishing they could have done something more. And because of their persistent, relentless love for me in action, I decided to stay. And by the grace of God, I had no idea that broken pieces can be put in the hands of God, and that when you don't get a miracle, you can still be a miracle, and beautiful things can come from broken pieces when you give your broken pieces a chance. So age 10 was definitely a difficult point in my life, and just because you become a Christian, it doesn't mean you don't have any other low points. At age 21, I share in my books about how I went through a big low point in my life at that time, and then in 2011, I went through a personal financial crisis and just burnout as a single guy at the time, dating my wife soon around that time, actually. We were only dating for 3 months, and I lost all my money, and I was in panic attacks for 30 days straight. You're not eating, not sleeping. It was crazy. Yet through that all, when I told my wife that, hey, babe, I lost all my money, she said, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I'll get a nursing job and support the both of us. And so those difficult things, now when you look at the bullying aspect, now using that and what had happened, now I see how all things come together for the good, where now I'm speaking to governments, national governments, state governments here in America, where we are on the front line against bullying and saving people's lives. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but 40% of attempted suicide in America in teenagers is because of bullying at school. That's on a stat of 290 schools anonymously surveyed by me personally. And so when we see that's amazing how one who nearly committed suicide because of bullying now is used in the hands of God to save lives. And sometimes you got to save lives before you're used by God to save souls. And so it's just been an incredible journey. And I'm so thankful that the revelation, Tom, to really answer your question and to close off what you want there, the reason why I gave my life to Jesus wasn't because Jesus healed the blind man. What I realized was, as a blind man, Jesus didn't sit him down and say, hey, I'm going to put mud on your face and then you're going to see. That's the plan. Are you okay with this? All that time up until then, I'm waiting for God to give me his plan to see if I'm okay with it and then trust him. But the blind man was still, and by faith, he didn't back away. He didn't question. He let God do his miracle. And that's when I realized maybe I'm the only person standing in the way of what actually God wants to do in my life. And it's my lack of faith. So God, give me faith. Forgive me on my sins. I want to live forever. I know money, drugs, sex, alcohol, pornography, fame, and fortune will never satisfy my soul. You'll always want something different. You'll always want something more of something that this world can give. But when you taste and see that the Lord is good, you thirst no more.
Too many quotes to keep track of there that are so worthy. That's why we're recording this. But that one of when you don't get a miracle, you can be a miracle is pretty significant in looking at when you're at a low point. And I do want to come back to hit on the bullying that you just talked about, but still just kind of jumping from Tom's story that here you are at 15 and what gave you that fertile soil for that revelation, and you citing your parents and their love. But to go forward from that, we still know that there's got to be. So you had ears to hear, eyes to see, as our Bible tells us, but there still has to be motive. And at Ziglar, we talk so much about that as the root, that the goal is not going to matter if you don't have that motivation, that inspiration to go after it. What have you seen, again, with looking at so many people dealing with so many hardships that you have been able to harness, or that you can look back again and say, gosh, yeah, there was the motive. Don't know why it was there, but that was the motive that kept me going. And even from that to extrapolate as you work with so many people, where do you see that motive come from? Because we know some finally get it, some never do. And that's difficult.
Number one, it's the grace of God that we could ever hear his voice and then respond and then live and then even think of trying to look for a motive, as you say. Mm-hmm. The definition of a human being, you've got a soul, you've got a spirit, you've got a mind, and then you've got a body of which is least important. A soul that gets saved, redeemed, restored, a spirit now that's filled with his spirit, and then to battle in daily renewing of the mind is in the mind. And that then affects your emotions, your psychology, mentality, culture, traditions, and who you are and your personality. And then God's calling upon you and how he breathes on you. Look, I think the most thirsting item that a human being is looking for is purpose. I think purpose drives everything. I think purpose and actually seeing your purpose at hand, and I think one of the greatest way to do that is to help somebody in need that cannot thank you, instigates a level and undergirding foundation of purpose that then reiterates your value. I think the biggest need is to be loved, and then to be able to express love is such a blessing when you've experienced it. And so I think it instigates back to the true north of our compass. Who am I and why am I here? The truth of your value, the truth of your purpose, and the truth of your destiny, which I really believe out of sometimes a depletion of the human spirit, it's kind of feeling like we're in a routine, a merry-go-round, until you actually fix your eyes on heaven and realize that when God sees you, he might look at you and say, well done, my good and faithful servant. But what if he then looks over my shoulder and says, well, who else did you bring? And so that's the question. Who am I and why am I here? I think those are the two big main things that pull the human spirit forward, that then you look for that source and hope and focus from him.
Kevin, I'm going to jump in on a question. Dad's mentor was a gentleman named Fred Smith. And I've become friends with his son, Fred Smith Jr. And he wrote a blog post, and he had these 3 points. And it was, how do you know if you're walking in your purpose? And I want to give you these 3 points, and I'd love for you to just expand on it, add to it, whatever, because it just kind of hit me. So the first point was, if you're walking in your purpose, you have a vibrant relationship with God, and you acknowledge him as the source of your gifts and talents, right? And we're all created uniquely and differently. There's only one of us in the world, and God's gifted us with things that only we have, and that combination only we have. And so we got to have that relationship with God and then have a gratitude for what he's given us. Number 2 point was, you work with grit on your gifts and talents. I mean, you that's our responsibility, right? You say, you acknowledge and you're grateful for it, and then you multiply it, right? And then the third one is, you share your gifts and talents with humility and love. You give it away. And of course, I compared that to Dad, and that just those 3 points were like, boom, that was him. And so I'd love to just get your feedback on that.
You know, many people who believe in God have problems to pray in the West, you know, more than 2 minutes. I don't know about you guys, but I sit in the toilet 20 minutes a day, and you better believe that I spend time with Him. You know, when anyone's struggling with actually praying for more than a minimum amount of time, I always suggest to them, write out 10 blessings that God's given you and thank Him for it. And you will pray more than 3 minutes. If you just did that, then get a verse a week and start building upon that and build up your discipline, because that's your armor. So I couldn't agree more strongly that an attitude of gratitude is the first and foremost thing, where somebody of a life of success doesn't focus on what they don't have. They focus on what they do have. They're thankful for it. They don't become prideful in thinking that they've mustered it up, because we know it's all thanks to Him. The second thing that you said was to then build. And first of all, it's acknowledging it. I think some people even struggle with acknowledging the gifts that He's given you. Acknowledging that is the first point, because some people then flip it the other way and make a false humility. Well, if I actually acknowledge the gifts that He's given me, then I'm kind of being prideful. Are you kidding me? No, you're being rejoicing and joyful in what God has given you and how He's uniquely created you. And then what does that mean? Is it just to acknowledge it and then to be identified by it? It's kind of thing like church. Is that my identity, my tradition, my culture? Is that it? Or is there something more to actually gathering together? Is there something more to these gifts that God can use? He will never waste what He's given you. We are the ones who waste what He's given us. And when you acknowledge it, you thank Him for it and say, God, use it, He will. Not in always our time, not in always our way. And there are times on the bottom line, just like you said in that part, it's sometimes getting out of that mindset of waiting for God to do something, but God's waiting on you to do something. Polish it. Surround yourself with mentors, those who've gone ahead of you. Learn from them. Learn from their success. Learn from their mistakes. And make sure that you do everything you can to mitigate the risk of failure as best as you can. And some of these things are grit. Some of these things are just grinding. So some of it's coaching, some of it's mentoring, some of it's accountability. But man, it's really, hey, what are you doing today for God? And how are you moving forward in your relationship, and then helping opportunities present itself to be ready for such application. The last thing, to give it away, look, no one's ever going to replace your dad. No one's ever going to replace my dad. But we got to understand that what we learned from them will remain in our hearts, and the way that they were always giving back to people, counseling people, mentoring people, spurring people on, it is so cool. And being able to share that knowledge, you know, it's one of the most empowering things for human society to be able to say, hey, you're here for a reason, you have blessings, you have gifts, acknowledge it, use it, find your purpose, and in your destiny, never forget to give back, because that's actually the most rewarding part of all.
Well, so when you look at purpose, that aspect of purpose, and again, looking at your own story and, you know, what gave you motivation, is there a point of looking at what you had to overcome, a physical handicap, as that being, did it help? I mean, when you look at this, we have so many people. We recently interviewed Mandy Harvey, the incredible singer who's deaf, and Eric Weinmayer, who went to Mount Everest, and he's blind. And to some degree, it feels like those who don't have an acute handicap, are they handicapped more because it doesn't give them that reliance, that drive towards the Lord? Did the handicap help clarify your purpose?
You know, I'm gonna change the perspective, okay, and put it inside out, so you see the tapestry that I see. First of all, I tell teenagers all the time, I believe it's worse being in a broken home than having no arms and legs. Now, the only conscious, logical thing that could be good, that could come out of such a tragedy, that is first in our minds, subconsciously and consciously, is that I hope that then I don't make the same mistake. I hope then that I am not like that person. And I hope then I'm going to learn from those mistakes. That's as good as it gets in the minds of the human spirit when it comes to good out of that brokenness. Now, when you look at somebody who has a physical handicap, who's now skydiving, golfing, fishing, swimming, 18 presidents, 10 governments, changing laws, some of them, to actually integrate special needs children into society for the first time. Now we say, well, wow, look at that person that can do something that I can't do with actually less than what I have. What I'm trying to say, it's got nothing to do with physical disabilities. It's about the brokenness of the spirit and the tragedies of our life and brokenness of our lives and hearts, with different perspectives and trajectories of what could ever happen from it. Now, going straight to your question, for all people now, it's got, again, it's about the heart, not the body, and the mind. And so, does it force me to figure things out? Absolutely. Do I think a little faster and ahead than some other people on things when it comes to figuring it out and them coming up with option A, B, C, and then I throw in D, E, F? Only because I've had to force myself to think through things and not look at things from a 3-angle point of view, but 6-angle point of view. Because when I was trying to reach something from my bookshelf and I couldn't reach it, and I asked Mum for help, she said, no, figure it out. I'm like, man, you're a mean mom. And so I'm looking, I'm crying, please, Mom, no, figure it out. And so I grab the ottoman with my teeth, push it with my shoulders, put it right up to the bookshelf where you normally have your footrest. I jump on the footrest, use my shoulder and my head to get upright on the ottoman, and then I grab the object with my teeth. At that moment, I realize, yeah, I shouldn't expect everything given to me. I'm going to have to figure out what is impossible and what is possible with only trying to try. And so that's the bottom line. The values, Kevin, that my parents gave me was figure it out, do something, learn. Don't expect things just to be given to you. And that's why they never gave me the toys I wanted. I actually ended up vacuuming the floor of our home twice a week for $2 a week to actually save up money to buy the cars that I wanted to buy from the toy store. That taught me values. That taught me saving. That taught me hard work. It gave me dignity. It taught me on decision making. It taught me on patience. It taught me 6 or 7 different lessons just because my parents didn't give me everything I wanted. And they said, figure it out.
It's a hard lesson. So you're there right now as a parent, and we all have that propensity to want to help our kids, to save them from whatever we feel like was a lack or a hardship in our lives. And I'm there. I've got a lot of kids, and it's a struggle. They're each different. They deal with different things, and that's hard. John O'Leary, who was burned, over the majority of his body, has a very similar story. Coming home from the hospital where he should have died, and he was going to get help to eat, and his mother said no, and it was devastating to him at the time. And honestly, when I heard him, just like I hear you, and that is hard as a parent. That reality right there, to say no, figure it out, does not feel good. But then you're testifying. So obviously, you've got your older son is what now? 5, 6?
He's 5. And, he's coming of age in a maturity level. But we're a little different here. The parenting style that is much different compared to the parenting style from my parents was the fact that we give him what he wants. He understands, though, when he wants a big goal, he wants to buy something of substance, he's going to have to do jobs around the house to do it. So he implemented that, and he understands that. The coolest thing, though, Kevin, that I don't share and I haven't heard from many people is I asked not a guy, a dear friend and brother, David Price, who first sponsored Life Without Limbs here in America, I asked him for some parental advice when Kyoshi was born. And you know what he said? Spoil them. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. No one's ever told me that. And I was processing, and I let it go. You know, like, how does that help anybody? Now at age 5, when Kiyoshi sees something that he wants, and I say, you don't understand, where you want to go is a 14-hour flight from here called the United Kingdom. He's like, well, why not? Well, when can I go? And he calls out an age that he wants to go. I'm going to go there at 17 years old. I'm going to come to China with you at 11 years old. Like, it's impossible. The word impossible absolutely doesn't register in his mind. It doesn't. And the cool thing to how to balance all of that is doing something then on the back end, on the other extreme. And you betcha, when he's 13 years old, I will take him to the Tijuana HIV orphanage and single mothers and children who are not being given medicine to live for HIV because the Catholic and Protestant churches don't have enough money. And even if they do have the money, they're telling them, you're being punished by God, so we're not going to give you the medicine. I'm going to show him sex slaves. I'm going to show him orphanages. I'm going to show him death. I'm going to show him cancer. At age 13, he'll be ready. And so we are hybriding a homeschool charter where we can show him one extreme, we'll get you everything you can, we'll help you do whatever you want and you feel God wants you to do the way he's wired you, and you acknowledge him and glorify him through that. But just remember, don't forget to give back.
Well, that's powerful. It gives food for thought. Yeah, I've not heard spoil the kid. I'm usually struggling with that I'm doing too much of that. It really is. It puts a different twist on this. Well, speaking of the kids, I want to come back. You talked about brokenness of spirit, and, it's not the body, it's the mind. When you look at bullying, so I do a lot of work, as Tom knows, in the health and wellness industry, and we've got chronic illness and disease here in America going through the roof, and we really get down to what's the cause. It's our lifestyle. We're growing, this stuff, but we look to the root. So if bullying, to the degree you're talking about teen suicide attempts being, I think you said 40% is from bullying, that's increasing. What's at the root of it? What's happened culturally? Talk about our spirits that is causing this. That's a symptom, as we all know. The bullying is a symptom of what?
Well, it's always been there from Cain and Abel,
True.
Has it not been? When someone thinks they're better than somebody else, that's when they do human fleshly things. And it starts from pride, greed, and lust from a man's point of view. Those are the big 3 hurdles of sin, the biggest ones of all, most common failures. And so it's not just, it's a symptom from the fall of man. It's always been there. Has there been more bullies since social media? That's what everyone asks me as internet explodes, social media. Well, it is more accessible now, and if there is a disease that has more doors to get in, then you can fit more of that disease in. It doesn't mean, though, that more of that has begun. I think what's happening is there are more ways to do it. Just like, this is the extreme level of the way that we're going, but sex robots. That's going to be the biggest topic on everyone's mind in 5 years from now. People are arguing that having sex robots are going to save more rapes on the kids, or is it going to actually influence more people to become pedophiles? That's the discussion that's going to happen in 5 years. In 10 years from now, 1/3 of American jobs are not going to exist because of robots. 50 million jobs will not exist in 10 years, in 3,650 days, counting down now. When you look at the world and where we're going, we are selfish, we are self-preservating, we will do whatever we can to survive in many ways. And unfortunately, the human spirit is selfish. But coming back to exactly the human nature on what we kind of secure ourselves on, whether it's addictions that we can't get out of, whether it's a secure future that we can provide for, or whether it's actually just doing things because we're doing it. I think actually the biggest influence that brought bullying to the level that we're at is the media. Bottom line, it has been culturally acceptable. It has never been challenged, because even when it is challenged, it's a cute campaign, and no one really believes that bullying can actually stop. Because when you psychologically, as a speaker, want to actually do a persuasive speech, you gotta persuade me. And no students in a school are going to be persuaded to stop bullying until someone tells them the truth. And you know what the truth is? The truth comes out when you do an anonymous survey in the school to figure out of 1,000 students of that school, how many have thought of suicide, attempted suicide because of a broken home, and attempted suicide because of bullying at school. It takes a speaker to go to the school to tell them that there are 20 students in your school who have actually just told me that they hate their life so much because of the bullying in this school, to the point that they actually already tried to end their life. Now, you don't know who told me that. I don't know who told me that, but they were here, and I have no reason to lie about that, and they have no reason to lie about that either. Who do we know in our school are being sexually abused at home, verbally abused at home? You don't know who they are, and we carelessly let words come out of our mouth, and we go with the flow without actually understanding the actual power of our words and our influence as leaders, whether we have a title or not. Either you can kill someone with your words, or you can save people with your words. And I always ask at every school, who wants to change the world? And I tell them, I don't believe you till you're ready to change this school. That's persuasive. That's when schools change, and no one has the balls to actually say it the way scientifically, psychologically. People, especially Christians, they say, well, if you get so much into psychology, then where's the room for the Holy Spirit? Are you serious? There's logical things and scientific things behind everything God does. If I have a root canal, God uses dentists. If we have someone who needs counseling, God uses psychologists. We need persuasive speeches given by effective communicators who know how to effectively grab the hearts, get the minds, and help them make the decision themselves, instead of just telling them what to do. Tell them what's going on, where we're at, and where we really could go. But if you keep on going down that track, don't just not do drugs. Don't just not have sex. It's not about that. Tell them what the truth is, and no one sits down and actually is able to and even in a Christian realm, if I could just go for 2 more minutes, everyone's praying for revival. I'm ready for anybody to pray for revival. There's a ministry that's trying to call 1 million people to Washington, D.C. to pray for revival. But actually, have we sat down to really define what revival is? What if those 1 million people were actually taught and trained how to preach the gospel in 3 minutes to 20 people in a day? 20 million people hear the gospel. 10% give their life to Jesus. 2 million people start a walk with Jesus. Yet we're hearing the word revival, revival, revival. Where are the 100,000 churches to get the 300,000 foster kids into a home? There are right now 100,000 children in America. I'm all for international missions. But what about our own orphans? Why haven't we started a foster care sponsorship program? Why haven't we got 100,000 churches taking 3 kids each? There are 7.8-year-old average age children, 100,000. Waiting to be adopted. If we are Christian, if we say we care about what Jesus cared about, then we got to show it. It's not about just praying and waiting for God to do something. It's acknowledging, get in the grit, let's get together and let's do something. Let's become one, and let's let the Christian schools show what the love of God is and be the first schools in this country to stop bullying. I mean, seriously, it's time that we really have a good look at ourselves and stop complaining about politics and media and the world and war propositions. Who are we? Where are we? It's time that we actually buckle up our belt, put on our shoes, and let's go somewhere and do something for the King of Kings and show the love of God in action and not just talk.
Tom, I'm inspired. We just need to stop and go now. I'm enamored by your throughout that whole thing where you started by saying, hey, if you've got a tooth problem, where's the Holy Spirit? You probably need to let the Holy Spirit work through a dentist. Where do you so here you are, Nick, where do you see your primary dentistry happening? Because I see you, I know the new effort that you have with Attitude is Altitude, and you're not just in a pulpit, just speaking about Jesus Christ over and over and over with what we would say is 100% evangelism. You're doing it through, I'm going to use your term, dentistry methods. Talk to us a little bit about that, because you know that we in the church especially, we got a lot of breakdown between those two efforts of waiting on Christ, praying for that, and you're saying, go do something. Help us in the dentistry model here.
It's amazing, bro. Look, I don't know what to say because there's so much to say, but I'll try to be succinct here. Look, I'm excited to be alive for such a time as this. I'll give you an example. We go in on so the faith evangelical ministry of Nick Vujicic is Life Without Limbs, where I get to go preach the gospel, and we preach the gospel to 670 million. Actually, the new numbers are 730 million people have heard the gospel of Jesus Christ in the last 12 years on national TV, actual numbers, with the last 52 million just being on September 2017. In Ukraine, 26 countries watching 20 languages, by the grace of God. 3 years ago, I went to Ukraine on Attitude's Altitude vehicle, which is a motivational vehicle in which I'm able to talk about values and attitudes and principles of life, which are Judeo-Christian based, but not preaching, not scriptural references, nor talking about Jesus, except for 2 or 3 sentences in how my personal story would not be complete without him. With that, then it opened up really the fact of the awareness in the Balkans more and more of the value of special needs children, which is going to be the next shake-up in India 7 years from now. Mark my words, there is going to be a social revolution in India in 7 years from now based on that, on their hierarchy and caste system. The bottom line in Ukraine, for an example, is it was very difficult to ever believe to have 1,000 special needs children gathered in a stadium to hear a motivational speaker. So we broke the Guinness Book of World Records for that, went on press conference for that. Then I came back and had the blessing of the government to preach the gospel in a stadium of 5,000 people with 20 million Ukrainians watching on TV. Then the government asked, can you come and speak to us? And in the context of the 500-year Reformation that just happened, where each citizen was allowed 500 years ago to finally have the copy of their own Bible, I was able to speak to the government after that. At that 1.5-hour meeting, after we left, they changed law to let special needs children to go into school for the very first time. Then the government comes back and says, well, now we need help. Can you help us now with a series of videos to prepare our teachers, our parents, our society, kids with special needs, kids without special needs, to actually be ready for such a revolution? So when you're the counsel to a government on that kind of level, it's only a miracle. And the vehicle of Attitude's Altitude is getting into marketplaces. I'm going to Iran this August, top 700 CEOs. It's probably the last Middle Eastern country that I go to until I go to Israel now for the first time. So there's strategy in how to reach people where they're at. Don't just tell them what you believe. Tell them that you love them and fulfill their need. I think that is how the church flourishes, and that's how God's love is most shown, and the gospel is preached without words.
So fulfilling that need, looking at a vehicle, and I love you talking about that that effort, that dentistry of attitude to altitude is a motivational vehicle. I know you've got another initiative right now, the Rise Above course. So tell us about that as a vehicle for what?
Thanks for letting me share that. So in the hundreds of speaking engagements, many people say, Nick, that's wonderful in an hour, 2 hour speech, but we want many hours with you, and we want to know this, and more about this. So we came up with a 3-hour course, 6 modules. It's called Rise Above, to help anyone rise above their circumstances, to overcome adversity, to overcome fear that they have that's really holding them back from fulfilling their dreams. And many people think, well, Nick, you're special and you're different than everyone else. But I'm not. We all have the same ups and downs. We all have the same fears. And for me, I just wanted to give a resource in the homes of all of those who are interested to learn how to change your mindset and overcome fear, how to reach your goals, how to change the mindset of who you are, attitude of gratitude, and just the basic steps, the fundamentals that are applicable to everyone of all ages, whether you're a CEO, a single mom at home, you're still at school, and you got fear, really affirming your value and purpose and your destiny, but really putting that like a dentistry in a module, very well thought process that you can go with me 25 minutes at a time, with worksheets, resources there that you can actually reflect, make it personalized for you, set goals, reflect, review, and really learn and put it into practice.
Excellent.
Wow, I love that. Kevin, let's make sure we give everybody links to that.
Yes, we will. When this airs, they're going to give us some custom links, so we'll be awesome.
All right, nice. So, I have a saying, Nick, and that is, we're all going to leave a legacy. It's either going to be by chance or by design, right? I mean, what we do here with the time that we're given, that's our legacy. And I see such intentionality in everything that you do. I mean, that was one of the things that I wake up in the morning, what can I be intentional today? What choices can I make? And I think for me, and probably for a majority of the people listening, it's like you think at this 10,000 foot level where you top, the snowball goes off the top and thousands of people are impacted. And I love it because it's like we limit ourselves before we even start the journey. And God's the one who provides us as we go. And so I'm just curious, when you look right now, and I know God can change our direction and our path and give us new visions and dreams along the way, but what are the things that you have in front of you right now that that if you can accomplish, or if you can go as far as God will take you on it, are going to take that legacy out? So what are the 2 or 3 things that are just burning on your heart?
Well, you know what? I have to mention that the other 3 topics on the Rise Above course really is creating a balanced life, how to turn obstacles into opportunities, and then redefining impossible. It's not that we're trying to tell someone to do something. There's actually many listeners who are successful at what they do. However, redefining impossible could take you to a new level. And that's kind of what's happened in my life in the last kind of 4 years, where I'm like, how do you reach 8 billion people? I bought those domains, 8billionsouls.com.org, because Google says by 2026 we'll have 8 billion. And so we're going to reach the world. So how do you do that? And so for me, what's in front of me to leave a legacy is I can just go speak. But what we're doing in the next 3 years is 700 videos. 300 videos that are motivational, that are 3 minutes for free, title sponsorship actually, a lifetime sponsorship, someone who wants to put their company, their foundation on an attachment brand with each video, 50 videos for children, 50 videos for teenagers, 50 videos for a general audience, some other series about disabilities, entrepreneurship, financial literacy, the basics of things that are not taught to anybody, and the values of really everything I would ever want to tell my children. I want to tell every child they should be benefiting of the truth. And so 300 videos that's motivational, 300 videos that's all scriptural based, same kind of layout, and then 100 videos in how to talk about the love of God based on the 100 different walks of life. I've been able to reverse engineer about 103 different ways that the human being can suffer. So my legacy will be basically, hopefully by the grace of God, 4 years from now, being able to reach the world in 30 different languages through subtitles, with 300 videos that cover age demographics and motivational, and then if they want to know more about faith, then they come that way. And so that's the only way to do it differently. And that also accomplishes my goal, which is to slow down. And so how do you slow down while you're trying to reach 8 billion? That's the trick.
Well, I hear you on that. You have not caused me to think about slowing down right now, but of speeding up and expanding my horizons, which is your goal. So you have accomplished your goal on the Ziglar Show. Again, it's tremendous. A lot of people out there dealing with a lot of stuff, that the way you bring it in. Yeah, Tom's description of you, that it just feels so covered in love, which Zig is smiling from heaven on that, as well as our Reverend Billy Graham and all those guys. Thank you for carrying their torch. Thank you for shining it brightly and increasing the brightness of my own today here on this show. Thank you so much, Nick.
Kevin, thank you for being an example with 20 children. God bless you and your family. Love you so much. Tom, always an honor and a privilege, and thank you so much for allowing me to share about this course that I really believe is going to bring a lot of value and application and revolution in many people's lives.
Amen, brother. We love you, man.
Love you.
Friends, thanks for driving with us in this show. Again, that's Nick Vujicic, which is spelled Vujicic. Type that in. You'll find him anywhere and everywhere, and you can connect with him and check in further on his message, his books, and videos, anything you want. Got a comment or question for myself, for Tom Ziglar, for Nick? Let me know. You can connect with me at kevinmiller.co or email me at kmiller@kevinmiller.co. Until next time, next episode, I hope this one helps you drive further, and most of all, enjoy your ride.
Yeah.